With us this morning to review the papers is political correspondent at Politics Joe, it's Ava Santina Evans, and political reporter at The Sun, Noah Hoffman. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. We were just saying, wasn't we, as Deborah's report was going out there, that the papers seem to be really quite mixed in terms of stories. When we have the Israel-Hamas story playing out, you would think there'd be a blanket coverage, but we'll start with the Guardian, because they are focusing, aren't they, Ava, on the hostages, because this is going to be quite a key story, isn't it, in any potential ceasefire?
Yeah, so Israel have ignored Antony Blinken, the US envoy who was sent over to Israel just yesterday. They called for a ceasefire. Israel have told them, we're absolutely not doing that. We're actually going to keep going with full force until the 240 hostages are re-delivered. So basically the issue for Netanyahu is he believes if he acquiesces and he agrees to a ceasefire or even a humanitarian pause, those hostages could be moved, or they might be able to, Hamas might be able to rearm themselves. So agreeing to any kind of pause is just non-negotiable for him.
It seems like that's their red line, Noah, doesn't it, really? They're not budging on that because of the reasons Ava stated.
Yes, so obviously the hostages are a big part of it, and Antony Blinken has come in and said, even though he's opposed to the idea of a ceasefire, can we have this humanitarian pause? And I think there's a lot of public sympathy for that, because we do really want to see that aid flow through to Gaza so that innocent civilians who desperately need it can get it. But Israel has come back and said, we can't have any pause in the fighting until we know what's happening with the hostages, until they're returned. And even after that stage, hypothetically, whether they're returned or not, Israel won't stop until the terrorists, Hamas, are eliminated, or at least to their satisfaction, pushed out of the Gaza Strip. And if Israel doesn't really have much of a choice, because if they sort of do this pause, if they do this ceasefire that lots of people are calling for, it's a return to the status quo. And we saw in 2014 tensions escalate and a war break out. We saw it on October 7th. When's the next one going to happen? It's just going to history will keep repeating itself, and it's not sustainable. It's not a long-term solution.
The big worry here, Ava, and the Guardian touches on this, is that the Hezbollah leader, also Hassan Nasrallah, spoke to people, didn't he, from this secret location, and that's the worry, and that's why Antony Blinken is in Jordan, isn't he, today, to try to stop any regional troubles, which in the Guardian that they're kind of pointing to.
Yeah, trying to quash any potential. I mean, you're looking at a potential destabilisation of the entire Middle East. I mean, the second that Hezbollah gets involved, you've got Iran off the back of that, you've potentially got Qatar and even the Saudis getting involved. So, this is sort of like a domino effect that could, so America are basically there to calm all of it. But, on your point there about the humanitarian pause, the big issue is the UN being able to get humanitarian aid over the Rafah crossing, which hasn't been going in. I mean, before this crisis, this current conflict, about 200 trucks going in every day, and at the moment we're looking at maybe 20, so about 10% of the aid going in when the Palestinians need it most. I mean, if anything, America should be focusing on that crossing rather than the wider picture.
And it's those stories that we're hearing about aid, or lack of it, going into Gaza that's causing lots of people, not only in this country, but we're seeing around the world, aren't we, Noah, the protests, and some are happening across British cities today. And this is a story that the Daily Express is going on. Their headline, "Hate marches are a affront to British values."
Yes, so what we see at these pro-Palestine protests is, I think there's sort of an array of type of person who shows up. I think there are lots of people who are genuinely very sympathetic and angry about, the war, and they feel very strongly about the plight of the Palestinians. There are also people there who just hate Jews, hate Israel. They want Israel wiped off the map. There are Hamas sympathizers at these protests. We saw at one of the first ones these two women wearing symbols of paragliders on their back as a sort of covert way to show support with a proscribed terrorist organization without overtly saying it. For Jewish people, That is absolutely terrifying. So when you hear politicians talk about these marches in, not the most positive light, there is a real reason behind it. And I know everyone needs to be careful with rhetoric. It's a very sensitive time, and there's already lots of cross-community tensions that don't need further inflaming. However, there are very, very problematic people on these marches who would be more than happy to see Israel wiped off the map, more than happy probably to see Jews wiped off the map as well, given their sympathy with Hamas, and that is in the Hamas Charter.
Yeah, well, the pro-Palestinian organisers do say that any of the protests or the marches that they are planning are away from Whitehall on Remembrance Sunday, because that's also an issue, isn't it? What the Express is kind of trying to detail that the disrespect that those marches potentially pose to any Remembrance Sunday commemorations that will happen next week, Ava.
So this is a row that's really unfolding on social media.
Yeah.
So there's a pro-Palestinian march that is being organised, and it happens to fall on Armistice Day. They've got no plans to go near the Cenotaph, no plans to go near Whitehall, but there is a faction, perhaps more on the far right, who are concerned that maybe Remembrance Sunday might be muddied or might be disrupted by this march that is going on. And look, back to what Noah just said as well about this march. Noah's completely correct that, most of the people who go on these marches are earnestly calling for a ceasefire.
And also it's a mix, isn't it, of Israeli people, of British Jews, that also are part of those protests and calling for a ceasefire too.
I would say in the Jewish community, there's fringes of every community, but really the mainstream Jewish opinion is not for a ceasefire. There is a lot of sympathy and desire for humanitarian pause, but the mainstream Jewish community would like Israel to see Hamas, gone, because they want to see us gone, and we would like to be safe. We want Israel, I say we as someone who is Jewish, we want Israel to exist. It can't exist in its current form, and there needs to be a long-term solution for peace. There needs to be a safe and secure Palestine and a safe and secure Israel.
There is the clear conversation. So we're saying day 1 + 1 after Hamas are removed. What happens? And the conversations don't seem to be there right now.
Yeah.
However, in the Times, the chief rabbi is saying, there are worries about those marches. It doesn't make us feel as a community safe.
Yeah, the chief rabbi has said that there's extremists who go on these marches, and so the marches should be policed better. It's a view that's echoed by Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary. She yesterday put out a statement basically declaring that she would basically use the full force of the law to crack down on anyone who was putting out. I suppose it's pro-Hamas rhetoric. That's what they're really going after. And, later today, there'll be another march in London. It's not expected to be as big as the one for next Sunday, which is going to allegedly be about 1 million people. But there are 1,600 Metropolitan Police officers who have been put out. So, the government are really using the full force of the law.
Yeah. What is the feeling about these protests? We know what the chief rabbi has said, and that's important that voice is placed out there, Noah. But from your family, your friends, what are they saying about these marches when they see them?
When you see tens of thousands of people chanting from the river to the sea, which I know different people, it has different meanings to, but the Jewish community has been very clear that is a call for Israel to no longer exist. It's very, very intimidating. It feels threatening, and it's scary, and it's a scary time because you'll see Jewish community organise vigils for the hostages, and you'll go there and it'll be like, oh, there's my mate from synagogue, and there's this person down the road, but it's just us. There's no one else there, calling for these hostages to come back. And then you go and you see tens of thousands of people, including, might I add, a lot of just bandwagon jumpers, shouting chants that they probably don't even know what they mean either. It can be quite upsetting.
I just wonder, music is one of those things that ties us together as a community, isn't it? And on the front page of the Times there, we have, what would have been the Beatles. They've released a track. Have you heard it, ladies? Do you think it's...
it's not my area of expertise, that, is it,
I was listening to it in the car. It was on the radio, and the Beatles wasn't my era, but you appreciate good music, don't you? And I thought it was quite decent, and a nice closing chapter to the era that was the Beatles.
I did really enjoy BBC Radio 6 desperately trying to be the first people to play it, and there was like quite a fraught exchange. I think they just about managed it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to download it. Ladies, we'll leave it there for now because we have so much more to get through. So we'll be joining you in the next hour because Jackie has just arrived.
I can't believe you just called the Beatles quite decent.
Well, I mean, it wasn't my era, I have to say. I have to say.
I'm disassociating from that. It's actually really good. It's very Beatlesy.
I thought so.
It's like stepping back in time. Not that it was my era either, because I was a baby, but I do remember some of it having revisited. It's good.